All right, good morning, everyone. It is about 8:35, and this is the Kent County Board of Commissioners meeting. I will go ahead and call us to order and ask Rod to go ahead and take the roll.
Good morning. On the attendance roll call, Commissioners Wooden.
Here.
Keel.
Here.
Carter.
Yes.
Sunstein. Here. Padua. Oliver King.
Here.
Merchant. Cloud.
Here.
LeGrand.
Here.
Here. Hildebrand. Here. Tennessee.
Here.
Here. Diaz. Here. Earl. Here. Kujak. Present. Levy.
Here.
Baker. Here.
Antor.
Here.
Chair Stick.
Here.
Mr. Chairman, you have 20 present, 1 absent. You have a quorum.
Thank you very much. We'll now move to the next item, which is our invocation. I will call on Commissioner McLeod.
Good morning, everyone. I've got just a short and sweet prayer for unity this morning, so if everyone could just bow their heads with me, I'd appreciate it. God of peace, we invite you to preside over this meeting. Even if we have different opinions, give us unity of spirit. Help us each listen politely as others share their points of view. Help us to work as a unified team in combining ideas for great outcomes. Help us to work as a whole rather than as individuals trying to promote their own agendas. May we have a spirit of camaraderie in this room and work together on our shared vision for the county. Amen.
All right, thank you. We'll now move to the next item, special order of business, and Al and I will step down for a bit.
Please have, let's see, Caitlin Kickstra come to the podium. One of Kent County's core values is to provide high-quality customer service to internal and external customers. We are here to recognize Caitlin Kickstra from the Department of Public Works, who was selected as one of our quality service employees for the fourth quarter. The coworker who nominated Caitlin for providing high-quality service to our customers wrote, "Caitlin is a waste reduction educator for the Department of Public Works. To increase outreach efforts, we have conducted a few after-hour tours for special groups and visitors. In a recent request from the Creston Neighborhood Association, we agreed to provide the group one of these tours. Though we've done a few of these tours, this one was unique in that some of the members of the group indicated they were part of a local environmental justice group. As a possible controversial group, Caitlin and I continued to present to the group like any other tour that comes to our facility. During the presentation, the group had lots of questions regarding history, operations, emissions, and so on. They even had an interesting discussion regarding chemical smells in the Black Hills neighborhood, where it sounds like the group participates in door-to-door activism. Together, we put those concerns to rest by our responses and discussions around how, despite this being a solid waste processing facility with over 3,000 tons of waste just feet away from the parking lot, there is no recognizable smell on the grounds. Further, we drove the message home when we went up on the charging floor with little noticeable waste smell there. This diverse group had both young and elderly, quiet and outspoken folks, but in all cases, we simply answered their questions and enjoyed a pleasant discussion. There were no rude comments, no arguments, and the group departed enthusiastically and grateful for the opportunity to see the plant. During the tours where we present, Caitlin provided DPW-related information regarding our other services. Caitlin is an incredible asset in our department in helping to share and educate visitors, residents, and guests in the handling and management of waste for Kent County. She's a rock star. Please join us in congratulating Caitlin for her notable contributions to the citizens of Kent County. All right, could we please have Amanda Lake approach the podium? We are here to recognize Amanda Lake from the Kent County Veteran Services Office, who was selected as one of our quality service employees for the first quarter. The individual who nominated Amanda for providing high-quality service to our external customers wrote, "Amanda worked with me to fill out an application for assistance for vehicle repairs. When it was determined that KKVA could not help with the total cost of repairs, Amanda went out of the way to further assist me with other available resources that we could go to with chances of teaming up with KK Veterans Administration in covering repair costs. Amanda has been nothing but friendly, helpful, and she has always had time for me. Initially, I failed in securing the money needed to fix my vehicle. Amanda continued to go out of her way until I received the funding needed to get my vehicle repaired. Please join us in congratulating Amanda for her notable contributions to the customers of Kent County."
All right. Again, congratulations to our acknowledgees. Next, special order of business would be Jerry Miller and Jesse Schultz from the Kent Conservation District. Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm pleased to be here representing Kent Conservation District. I'm Jerry Miller. I'm the Board Director and Chair of the district. I happen to reside in Cascade Township, and I'm east of the Grand River, so Commissioner Hildebrand is my representative on the commission. Again, we've done this annual update in the past, but we're pleased to and thank you for providing us an opportunity to provide our annual update. I want to just make a couple comments before we get into a few of the slides we have. We have our annual meeting and showcase on March 16 at the Rockford Sportsman Club, and Administrator Vanderberg honored us with his presence and made formal comments, and he talked about the county's 2050 vision. We also had, we always invite all the commissioners, and we had at least one there this year. And so during that during our meeting, we presented a certificate of appreciation to Administrator Vanderberg and also to Commissioner Hennessy. And so we were very pleased with them. In addition, we had another certificate and that commissioner happened to have knee surgery on March 16, and so he was unable to be in attendance. So, Mr. Chair, if I could, I would like to take a moment and present Commissioner Ponstein. Commissioner Hennessy and Commissioner Ponstein has been really strong supporters of the district. Just to share just a brief history, the Kent Conservation District was established in May of 1946. Conservation districts are local units of government of the state, and Kent Conservation District is just one of the 75 districts across the state covering all 83 counties. We have 5 elected board members, and I'll introduce those in a moment. The requirements for a board director is 1, to be a resident of Kent County, and 2, to file for elections 60 days prior to the election, which we hold during our annual meetings. Our board members serve 4-year terms, and we have no term limits. And as I said, I'll introduce those momentarily. Our our mission, as you see it on the slide, is basically, as I like to say, to protect and enhance the soil, water, and plant resources on working lands across the county. We accomplish our mission by collaborating with partners, federal, as you see on the slide, federal, state, and local, including Kent County and several townships within the county, as well as NGOs. Kent County partners include not only you, the commissioners, but also the Drain Commissioner, the Road Commission, and we work closely with county parks. The Board of Directors, in addition to myself, are shown on this slide, and we have a farm consultant. Whoops, I got ahead. We have a farm consultant, we have 2 farmers, and we have an attorney, as I said, as well as myself. Our board can appoint associate directors, and currently we have 2 appointed associate directors there on the bottom of the slide. And the one associate director, Carolyn Johnson, not only is as associate director for the Conservation District, but she also represents the district as an individual with a conservation interest, and that was a requirement for her appointment to be on the Kent County Agriculture Preservation Board. So I wanted to identify Carolyn, because in your follow-up presentation, you'll hear more about the members of the Farmland Preservation Board, or Ag Preservation Board. I wanted to just briefly, you have our annual report on your table, and I won't go through that. We're going to end up our presentation with a short video, and so many of the things in the annual report will be included in the video. But I do want to point out that if you look at the pie chart on the left, you'll see that we have a very balanced distribution of revenue across contracts, grants, and services. And part of those operational revenue grants that are indicated on the slide include the FY22 allocation from you, the Kent County Commissioner. So again, thank you for your support for the Conservation District with your funding. We used that funding to leverage about $370,000 in new grant funds in terms of match and other ways that we could use those funds for leverage. So, you know, that's interesting. Looking at all of our grants, that leverage was about 14-to-1, so thank you. Overall, you'll see that our total revenues were $617,000 and change, and we used that money. That money was helped us to our staff to work hand in hand with the USDA Natural Resources Conservation Service, which ended up obligating about $1.8 million of USDA Farm Bill funds for Kent County farmers and producers. And those dollars resulted in implementing conservation practices to protect soil and water across about 13,000 acres, as well as other activities, as you see on our different parts of our chart. In addition, just to summarize on the right then, you'll see that about 72% of our funds were from grants, and the other 28% from fees and services. So a very brief overview, and we'll take questions at the end, but at this point I'd like to introduce Jessie Schulte. Jessie is our district manager, and she's going to provide some additional information, and we'll end up with a short video. So Jessie's the glue. We're just the board directors, but here's the glue. So Jessie Schulte.
So much for your time today. I did want to mention that our core grants, the Michigan Agricultural Assurance Program, and our Conservation Technical Assistance Initiative grants from MDARD, they actually require that we do a conservation needs assessment every 5 years. So in 2022, we actually asked multiple landowners and stakeholder groups, we asked what natural resource management concerns they had, and what would be the most helpful way that Kent Conservation District could address those. So our Joel Betts, our Michigan Agricultural Environmental Assurance Program coordinator, he's here today. And we're so happy with the work that he did to put together the Conservation Needs Assessment. It's 14 pages, and we put it on your desk there. The Conservation Needs Assessment, basically, we were able to survey group folks into four groups based on land use, and that is our farms, our urban, our forest, and our water. And then we asked those folks to look at 3 top priorities. And the top priorities that Kent County residents focused on or said were important to them was stormwater pollution, degraded habitat due to invasive species, soil erosion, water pollution from agriculture, degraded soil health, like loss of organic matter in their farm fields. So the key takeaways is that the conservation district is going to continue to focus on soil conservation and water quality, and that we want to expand our invasive species program. We want to continue to offer our tree sales, which landowners are saying are valuable, which we had one this Saturday on Earth Day. And then we want to continue to enhance our forest and health programming and make sure that we're addressing agricultural producers, whatever particular needs that they might have related to a no-till drill or addressing concerns about underground storage tanks. So expect to see our programs and priorities reflect the needs identified in the Conservation Needs Assessment that you have, and we will incorporate this feedback into our 5-year plan, and we hope to be able to give you feedback into your 50-year plan. So with that said, there's so much the Conservation District does, and I know we only have a few minutes. We wanted to share the short video that we actually made for you, which is basically our annual report in a quick little video. So let me snap that on.
Michigan is filled with many amazing natural features, but surprisingly, only 28% of the state's
Can you guys
land
see the
area
video?
is set aside for conservation or public use. The remaining 72% is privately owned, including farmland. With many amazing natural features, but surprisingly, only 28% of the state's land area is set aside for conservation or public use. The remaining 72% is privately owned, including farmland. This means that private landowners and farmers play a significant role in managing our state's natural resources. Since its establishment in 1946, the Kent Conservation District has assisted landowners in the restoration, protection, and sustainable management of their land. Working at the local level, rather than through regulatory action, allows us to directly support our diverse populations and represent the local interests of our communities. By promoting practices that improve the quality of Kent County's water and land, we are directly advocating for the health and well-being of its inhabitants. The Kent Conservation District has diligently served Kent County residents in this way through a variety of programs and funding opportunities. Last year, we accomplished this through leveraging over $1.8 million in U.S. Department of Agriculture Natural Resource Conservation Service cost shares for conservation efforts on over 13,000 acres in Kent County. Partnering with local organizations through state grants to address sources of sediment, nutrient, and E. coli contamination within local waterways, offering educational workshops and 4 separate native plant sales to community members, and engaging landowners under the Michigan Agriculture Environmental Assurance Program, which provides no-cost environmental risk assessments to local farms and verifies producers' commitments to protecting our soil and water resources. Last year, we completed 26 assessments and verified 8 new producers. In the past year, the Kent Conservation District also employed an engineer and a conservationist through grants from the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation and the Michigan Department of Agriculture and Rural Development. These allowed district staff to work on a total of 117 different projects, 12 of which were located within Kent County, in addition to assisting nearly 30 Kent County landowners. And finally, the district treated 255 sites within Kent County for state-regulated invasive species, including on county-owned and public lands. the invasive strike team was able to respond to 120 additional landowner concerns regarding invasive species that are harmful to native plants and wildlife or that threaten natural resource quality. Thanks to the collaborative efforts of generous community partners like you, these programs and support services have made significant strides in promoting healthy lands and healthy people. Ongoing support from the Kent County Commissioners will secure widespread and lasting impacts for the community by enabling us to continue educating and assisting landowners in conservation best management practices. It has been said that the future of conservation districts is the future of our nation's natural resources. Together with you, we can protect and enhance Kent County's valuable land and water for the health of our families and for future generations. This video was sponsored by the Kent Conservation District because healthy soils give rise to healthy food, leading to healthy people, a healthy environment, a healthy Michigan, and a healthy planet.
So I think that's it. Then we just wanted to offer a chance to answer questions. Thank
Great.
you.
Thank you for the presentation. Let's see if we have a few questions from commissioners or comments. Commissioner Andrew.
Cool. Shall we get to,
I'm not assembled for.
Sorry about that. Had a little bit of excitement there.
All right.
Too much excitement.
All right, Commissioner Enter, you've used up your time. All right.
Thank you for that presentation.
Yeah.
Not so much a question as a comment. You talk a lot about soil erosion, especially around our ag practices and so forth. Obviously, it's a big issue. Otherwise, you wouldn't be talking about it. And I just wanted to point out, we'll get something else coming up here pretty soon about ag preservation, which is critical in Kent County. We've been blessed with some incredible very productive farmland. And nothing will erode soil quicker than a bulldozer and a development in prime ag where the two should, it should be like water and oil. Got to keep those two separate because ag is it's incredibly important to us, Michigan, and we got to continue to keep our eyes wide open and make this the type of area people want to come to because we are preserving farmland. We're not developing every square inch, and there's a quality of life that goes along with that. So I just want to encourage you to continue your efforts in the realms that you're doing it, plus promoting ag preservation. I wish if I had a magic wand, I know money's always the issue, I would protect every square inch of the prime ag in West Michigan. It'd be the best thing we could do for future generations. I don't have that magic wand, so we got to figure out ways to do it. But I appreciate your work.
Thank you so much. We agree.
All right, Commissioner Sparks.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to say I really enjoyed the video. I like how you made the connection between the healthy land and everything in our whole ecosphere. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
All right, Commissioner Bujek.
Chair, thank you for coming out and giving this presentation. I received an invitation to the
Showcase.
to the event in Rockford, and when I saw that, I wasn't quite sure how it related to the county because as a new commissioner, I didn't have this presentation, didn't understand it. I thought the Kent Conservation District was like the Caledonia Gun Club or something.
Sure.
And that it was a private group. I'm like, why is the county promoting this private group? How is it relative to the county? So I appreciate you coming out and sharing, and I learned quite a bit this morning. Thank you.
Wonderful. I hope to follow up with an email, and I'll send you a link to the video. So thank you so much.
I think we have another Commissioner Ponstein.
Oh, wonderful.
Just briefly, Jerry and Jesse, I've been, admirers from afar for a long time, and the way, the amount of good you do with what little money you get, and how you can parlay that with other organizations is just outstanding. And I'll keep advocating at the state level to hopefully they can restore the funding that they cut years ago and kind of get us even a jump start. So thank you for everything you do.
Thank you.
Commissioner Wooden.
Thank you, Chair. Just, you mentioned our contribution on our previous budget and how much you were able to leverage. Could you remind me again what that appropriation was?
Sure. Yeah, that was $25,000.
So 25,000 you leveraged 14 times as much?
Yes. Yeah, because it's basically match that we're able to provide and the foundation of our operations.
Wonderful. And
Yeah.
to my knowledge, that was the first time you've gotten an appropriation from our general fund in quite some time?
That's true.
And has there been a request for a similar appropriation in this fiscal year, or this coming fiscal year?
Yes, we did send a letter to Vandenberg.
Wonderful, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, anyone else? If not, thank you, Jesse and Jerry, for your presentation and, of course, for all the hard work that you do on behalf of our county.
So much.
All right, the next item, another special order of business, the Agricultural Preservation Board, and Matt Janning is going to present. Good morning, Matt. I see your board chair, Denny Heffron, is here as well. Good morning.
Good morning. Did you get my script in advance? Sorry, I have my board chair with me, Denny Heffron. Hi, I'm your Ag Preservation Specialist. I'm Matt Channing. Now I'll be taking you through a walkthrough of a very important program that the Kent County provides, and then yielding time to my board chair to talk more about ag in the county. So thank you for having me, and for new commissioners, it's a pleasure meeting you. I'll be up here periodically with items to bring before you, so I thought it'd be a good time now to introduce the Ag Board and the Purchase of Development Rights Program. So why do we preserve ag land in Kent County? This really started about 20 years ago when suburban sprawl became a bigger issue, a known issue, a national issue. Of 49 metros in the country of 1 million or more people, Grand Rapids ranked number 6 as far as sprawl goes, but we were only the 47th in population. So we're punching above our weight limit as far as growth goes. And Al, when he came back around, helped me dig up an old article that showed this and how much of an issue it was then and how much an issue it still remains. Preserving farmland also had other benefits the board saw at that time, including aesthetic resource, an economic resource, and environmental resource. So who is the Ag Board? We have 7 members. One of them is on your board right now. We have a county commissioner, and I appreciate our previous commissioners that have been on since I've been here, Common and Sparks. All the board members serve for 3-year terms, except for the commissioners. They're appointed every year, and they're drawn from a diverse background. We have a township representative, we have a real estate representative, we have a conservation representative, currently from the Conservation District, and then we have people with general ag interests, an active farmer, Denny Heffron. And then you have me who staffs it, and it's my privilege. So what is preservation? What are we trying to do? We're trying to, as Commissioner Antor pointed out, manage growth to preserve prime farmland. We don't tell townships what to do. We work with them to identify where are you not growing, where is your ag land that you want to preserve, and we'll help you get there. Again, particularly when it comes to prime soils. We're also trying to create a business environment for ag in the county. We need a minimum threshold of farms to create that demand for the supply of all of the goods that you see. And that's not just in our rural, it's also our urban farms require a lot of the same implements and equipment. So we really span businesses across the county in every district. But then there are important environmental benefits. As the district pointed out, we protect habitats, we secure water runoff, we protect soils. So we're very much in the business of farming and environmental protection. Those go hand in hand. They're not incompatible. And then, of course, a good quality of life. I enjoy my farmer's market. I enjoy UPIC. I love seeing the orchards, our bucolic fields. I'm from California. It's a bit different there. So I came to West Michigan and fell in love with what we have. Where do we preserve? Our prime soils really do span across the county, but as you can see, we are heavily concentrated in 2 areas. The Parnell Corridor on the east side, primarily in 2 townships, Grattan and Vergennes, and also in the Fruit Ridge, we have a lot in Sparta and Tyrone, and you can see the breakdown in our acres there. We're permitted to preserve land in 18 townships. Like I said, it's a partnership, and those townships have passed resolutions of support that allow us to work with them to preserve farmland. They've identified that as a priority of what they want to do in their townships. So how do we actually do this? So working with the Board of Commissioners, actually, we create a selection criteria for our farms. That's approved by you every year. And then we score all these criteria into a rank order that you will also approve. From there, we will also establish a price to be paid for these development rights. The development rights themselves are what's the value of the land if it's not farming. And so we try and pay the farmer for that value so that it can be a farm in perpetuity. And so you see the bottom there, I have 2 graphs to kind of show different metrics we put out. So you see the blue one is about the scores, and the green one is about, okay, here's how a funding model would look. We also have amazing partnerships, including different levels of government, from townships to other counties to state and federal departments of agriculture, and that's where the bulk of our funding comes from, those two state and federal entities. MSU Extension, they provide amazing science background, they're a trusted name, and our business background as well, because every farm we have is a business operation. And then, of course, we have Kent Conservation District and Ag Conservancy of Michigan, environmental help, as well as soil remediation and other aspects. So when do we preserve? Our program runs on a yearly cycle, so that means every year, we set selection criteria. We're always trying to tweak it to really leverage the most dollars we can, to be the most competitive we can. We compete with every, other ag preservation program in the county and in the country, and so we're trying to fight for all the dollars we can bring back to West Michigan. And then I apply for grants in October, November. And then in the winter months, when farmers are less busy, we open the new window for applications to take in. And then in March, April, I come back to you with the scores we have for those applications. The graph on the left you can see there is our acres preserved since the inception of our program. We really had a good spike just after the Great Recession. We had a lot of help from foundations. And then since then, we're preserving about one farm a year as far as the acres and farms go. So with that, I'd like to invite my board chair to come up here and give us a little more remarks on ag preservation in West Michigan, and we'll both be available for questions both on the program and the ag board itself.
Well, thank you for allowing us this morning, and I see a lot of new faces here, so I'm glad you let me come this morning. I want to talk about the world. We're going to start out with the world. In the world, it's a big map. And, well, I should start. My name is Denny Heffron, and I'm one of the 3 representatives on the Ag Board that represent agriculture. And I'm the owner of Heffron Farms. It's a family farm in Grattan Township, and we've been there for 102 years now. This last winter, I had a chance to attend the Commodity Classic in Orlando, Florida, and it's the granddaddy of all agricultural conventions. And one of the sessions I went to, I found very interesting. It was a session on soybeans, and the speaker started out saying, around the world, we have 16 new soybean processing plants under construction. In the next 3 years, these will come online. These 3 plants, once they're online, will be able to process 25% more soybeans than what we have today. And the next question was, where's it going to come from? Well, in the United States, we're right now running pedal to the metal all out. The only land that's really set aside is fragile land, non-prime land, wetlands, and the like of that. And so the United States used to be #1 producer in the world of soybeans. We're now #2. South America is #1. South America has been clearing land like crazy. The rainforests, you've probably read and seen articles on that. And that's heavily supported and financed by nobody else but the Chinese. The Chinese have a lot of people to feed, a lot of mouths, and food security is really important to them. And so you might think they're our friend, but guess what? They're really not our friend. They buy their soybeans from South America, their #1 choice, and when they run out, they come to us. And they use so much, they have to come to us every year. They're non-self-sufficient on providing food for their people. And soybeans, first of all, I should say, there's two main ingredients out of a soybean, the oil and the byproduct, the meal. And the oil is used for a number of things. Fast food restaurants use a lot of it and the like of that. And the meal is high in protein. It's a feed fed to livestock industry. And so the Chinese use a lot of it, a lot of soybeans. They do their own processing. And but like I said, we're number 2 on the list when it comes to China buying soybeans from us. And I was to a session a few years ago, and that topic came up, how they're really not real reliable. We kind of know South America's crop is, and so we know kind of what they're going to buy. But this conference, they said, really don't worry about that, because there's so many emerging countries, developing countries now, that are buying our product, and we really don't need the Chinese anymore. We'll take them, but they're not our bread and butter. And so one of those countries is Vietnam. Vietnam has become a great trading partner with the U.S., and they want to eat better. They're tired of rice, and they want to eat like the West, and they want more protein in their diet. And so they've been a big user of soybeans. And the theme behind all this is the world is calling for more food. As they have more money, at the top of their list is to eat better. And in the 1970s, we had a surge in this, mainly because of the export markets. We started to export the ocean freight, and this was developing. And so the demand was pretty big for our products, and we couldn't keep up. The world was calling for more food. And back then, we had a soil bank. There was a lot of land in the soil bank, and it was a reserve. And that land came out of the reserve, and it filled that need at that point. So that's how we got over that hump, to meet the world's needs in that. And even a little more, in the 80s, we had a little overproduction. Well, the markets continued to grow and all of that, and now we're back to we're just getting by. And at this conference I was at, they said, well, where is it going to come from? Well, they said, we're going to have to steal some acres from corn and and wheat and cotton. We're going to have to do that. Well, that's easier said than done. And the price will dictate that. And we've seen this last 6 months, record high prices in all those commodities. And it's because there's a little tug-of-war going on right now for acres. And once they've secured the acres, then things will calm down. But right now, they're trying to figure out who's going to get how many acres. And farmers are wise. They know if they can make more money on soybeans than they can corn, they'll plant more beans. But if they can make more money at beans, they'll plant beans and less corn. And so there's a little bit of that going on. And at the same time, we originally had urban sprawl that was the big culprit. Well, there's other things that are emerging. One is, and you've seen and heard and read all about it, solar farms. They call them farms because they're on farmland, but solar electricity. And the thing that comes into play here a little bit is, at the same time, we're switching over to more electric uses, electric automobiles, electric everything. We're decommissioning nuclear plants. We're shutting down coal plants, and there's a train wreck coming, I'm going to tell you. There's a train wreck coming, and our grid system is not set up to handle the needs of what's predicted. Now, going ahead, back 20 years ago or so, Commissioner Steve Heacock asked for the MSU to give a report on urban sprawl, a special report, and the effects of it. And at that time, they came back and said, for agriculture to be viable, we need 100,000 acres. And for that, I mean, so that the fertilizer dealers can stay in business, the implement dealers can stay in business, and the processors can stay in business and all that. We need that. Well, out of that wisdom, the County Board of Commissioners adopted the Farmland Preservation Program that we have today. And but politics started to kick into gear here. And so they started out saying, well, let's see if we can preserve 25,000 acres first, you know? And so here we are today, 20 whatever years later, and we've preserved just over 4,000 acres of the 25,000 that was the goal. And I guess, you know, I come today, the Ag Board needs direction from you people. What do you want going ahead? And we just need some advice from you on what you want us to do. If there's nothing to do, then I guess we go home. But I would hope that's not your net result. But also, I want to end by saying there's going to be a Kent County tour May 4th, and Matt either has been or will be in contact with all of you to see if you could participate. He'll be setting up the schedule on that. But and I guess that's all I have, if you have any questions.
Well, thank you. My guess is there probably are some. Any comments or questions from commissioners? Commissioner Antor.
Good morning. Could you just give a real quick thumbnail on the transfer of development rights program? And because that tends to be sometimes a little bit better received because there's not as much money that's required. Can you give a real quick synopsis of that, how that works?
Well, it would be where, I'll say at the township level, they could transfer development rights from one piece of property and put it on another piece of property and preserve the one piece of property and give the other landowner higher density or something of that nature.
Matt, were you going to add something to that?
Well, his voice is a little sore. Grattan Township, where Danny's from, is actually piloting a TDR, or Transfer Development Rights Project, and it has been met with some success. Wherein, once again, development rights are taken off of a farm from a private purchaser without us being involved, and the township allows them to either, build to more density, i.e., create a greater value per net square foot of development, and then pay the farmer for a agreed upon value of those rights. As of right now, there is not the permitting legislation to allow for rights to cross jurisdictions in that way. So while Grattan Township is great at piloting it, the development pressure isn't there to really generate the acres of preservation that we would like to see.
Commissioner Merchant.
I don't have a question. I just wanted to say good morning to Mr. Heffron. I'm very fortunate to have you in my district, but also as one of my township trustees in Grattan Township. So thank you for being here today, and I just wanted to say good morning.
Commissioner Sparks.
Thank you, Chair. I miss you guys. I'm sure Commissioner Oliver King is doing a great job on the Agricultural Preservation Board. This is another board that does not receive all of the funding that they need to do the job that they need here in Kent County. And I would love to see you get more funding. No farms, no food. Many times, we take things for granted when we're drinking our wine, when we're drinking our happy beers, and all that comes from the farm. So it's very disconcerting to me that we don't support the program as strongly as we should, but I would like the board to consider making sure that we are taking care of our farmland. Thank you.
Commissioner Wooden.
Thank you, Chair. I wanted to touch back on the TDR conversation. In the past, we've talked about trying to see if there could be some form of enabling legislation to allow countywide TDR, or even some kind of revolving funding structure that would operate like TDR, but not explicitly so. Has there been any luck in terms of seeing new enabling legislation to bring TDR countywide?
No, not really. I've said many times we need to look to the east. If you go out in those states out there, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Maryland, and all that, they've really got creative. Everything from dumping fees at the landfill to cigarette tax to, there's all kinds of things that they've did. to get creative, and we just haven't got very creative yet here.
And in terms of Grattan Township's pioneering on TDR, does it still require essentially a buyer and a seller at the same point, or is there, I know that some municipalities in other states have been able to establish essentially a TDR bank or a TDR fund where someone who wants a density bonus purchases it with the idea that there will be farmland to collect those rights later. Has that been considered? Is that possible?
Well, there is some areas that do that, that have a bank and that. You know, in Grattan Township, it was the developer and the farmer. We leave it up to the developer, you know, to go seek out the farmland. It has to be land that we, in the areas that we want to preserve and all that. And it's a deal they work out between those two people.
I could say more. So what we're referring to is we call buy, protect, sell, wherein a municipality or some other government entity could purchase the land, hold on to it, and then turn around and sell it to a developer, and that way, the rights, not the land. Our ordinance is not set up that way. We only receive the rights, hold on to them, and extinguish them. So that would change. Obviously, we need to change in our ordinance here. It does get a little stickier, a little hairier. So it's not something I would recommend at this time, but it has met with success in other parts of the country.
And then lastly, you went through the slide showing the table for evaluation of those rights. Could you explain a little bit, or either again or just kind of a little bit clearer, how we evaluate those rights?
Happily. So ultimately, an appraisal determines what the market value of those rights is. That appraisal is checked by our funders, i.e. the state and USDA, to make sure it's dot all the I's and cross all the T's. They have a very large rubric for appraisers to follow. I, at the outset, will take a rolling average or a median of those values, adjust it a little bit. It's easier to give money back to the government than go back and ask for more money. So I take about 4,000 an acre right now for those development rights. And we've just had a few appraisals come in, and they range from 2,100 to 5,700. So and they're only less than a mile apart. So it's, you know, my estimate is a dart in the darkness, but it seems to be somewhat accurate enough. And of course, I caution our landowners, this is really an estimate. An appraiser will make determination. There's no contract to sign until we get that appraisal or an agreement. This is a voluntary program. We don't want to punish our landowners. You know, we need goodwill. We need them to be ambassadors on our program. So I just had one that was fully funded that walked away because he had family issues they needed to take care of, and I understood, and we don't want to part as enemies.
Thank you.
Commissioner Hennessy.
Thank you. I really appreciate that we've received a broader view on the use of the land locally today by putting the Conservation District and the Ag Preservation on the same agenda to hear about. It's very interesting, and to hear the local view on the land and to hear this little global view that we're getting from Denny Heffron. He's, you know, Denny, you said that the Agricultural Board needs direction going ahead. We've had a couple of subcommittees over the years give reports, and, you know, we're seeing, you know, as Matt began his program, you know, the urban sprawl emphasis right now. So if you were to say one or two things you would like to see us do to offer you direction, you know, to provide direction, what would it be?
Well, I think a big help would be, because I see so many new faces here, is go back to the archives. The county board has had subcommittees, and they've did excellent jobs, and they've come up with excellent recommendations and all that. Dig them out and read them. I think it'd be really educational.
Dig them out and read them?
What's that?
Just dig out the old report, I think it was around
Well,
2016,
you know,
when the last report was given?
and then, go from there. I mean, it gives ideas of, how to go about some things in that. And, it'd just be really helpful. They did a great job on all of them. I don't have any criticism of any of them, but they kind of was mothballed afterwards.
Thank you.
All right, Commissioner Bujay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate you bringing the attention of the competitiveness of the need for electricity in the future and solar farms. Michigan is the #2 agricultural state in the country, and we really need to look at our agricultural land and for the value that it has And when we see competing interests like solar farms, we need to look at, what is the value of that electricity versus the loss of the revenue that will be coming from prime farmland? You have a very, very limited amount of prime farmland, and, we're gonna have to very carefully look at where they're proposing these so-called solar farms, and look at those competing interests. And also, as far as farmland preservation, I know the county has in the past made an effort to educate the commissioners. Took them to Lancaster, Pennsylvania, I believe, where they have a working model of farmland preservation that shows that the two, agriculture and urban, can coexist side by side in a sustainable, planned way to preserve farmland and, allow for, that need to be maintained. People go to Myers and they think, well, food comes from Myers. No, food comes from the farms. So, we have to preserve our agricultural heritage and farmland. And I'd like to see, and I was looking at your map and I didn't see any farmland preservation in my district. So, District 21, please bring it out to Bound Township. We have plenty of prime farmland out there. And if we could bring that program to District 21, I'd like to see it.
I have just two comments. One of the things is that we've lost a lot of the faith from the farmer. And you know why? Because they wonder where it's going. And the worst thing that could possibly happen to a farmer, he preserved his farm and he's the only one in that area and he suddenly becomes an island. And 20 years from now, how does he survive? He's preserved this farm, can't do anything with it, and it's so built up around him. He can't move machinery, he has dust problems, he has all these things that come along with agriculture, and he's an island. And that's why we've had so many of them pull their applications out, because they just don't see it going anywhere. Number one. Number two, the energy thing, and I'm not advocating for any of them. I don't know. I just say we got a train wreck coming, and I can tell you that the number of acres nationally that they're talking about that would be needed for solar is going to greatly impact the acres that we have for farmland, and it's going to impact the bottom line of you at the grocery store. No ifs, ands, and buts about it.
Commissioner LeGrand.
If you permit, I have one comment to make on the, well, we are the number 2 ag state. We are the number 1 ag state with a stable and abundant water supply. So, keep that in mind. Again, California, my state's on fire half the year. So it's really nice to come here and have water to irrigate.
All right, Commissioner LeGrand.
Thank you, Chair. Like Commissioner Hennessy, I really appreciated the 1-2 punch from the Conservation District and from Agricultural Preservation.
Not accident.
And Matt, I really appreciate how clearly you present and explain everything. It's always a pleasure to hear you present. I just want to also put this in the context of our housing discussions, which we've been having. And that's what makes this transfer of development rights so appealing, because we can build more density in already populated areas while still keeping our green spaces green and hopefully productive. And we know that's one of the big draws for people coming to this region, is that we do have the beautiful, abundant green scenery, which we have to work to keep it at this point at the rate that we're growing. So I personally really would like to, hope that we can explore that transfer of development rights. And I appreciate that we've been having conversations on growth by choice, that we need to think about it. We are, in charge of looking ahead for our region. But I really appreciate, Mr. Heffron, the points that everyone has been making about having to have a threshold to make this doable and reasonable. It's very important to think about, and I'm really glad that you brought that up today. So thank you very much for your presentation.
Commissioner Ponstein.
Thank you, Chair Steck. So, Matt and Denny, I want to thank you for your passion and your hard work on this. Denny, you've been advocating this for decades, I can say now. You can't drive the point home. I mean, Commissioner Sparks said it right. No farms, no food. Now, I'm not willing to throw the solar industry completely under the bus yet, because there's different ways to build solar farms where the farm can still be active and diverse. But the thing we've got to remember, folks, we are number 2 in the nation in crop diversity, not just ag total, just the diversity. And if you throw us in with the Midwest, with our water supplies, we're going to be being looked to more and more to provide that essential national security issue, and that's food. And water's, tops that too. So we've got to have the conversation. We've got to do something. We can't preserve all the farmland, but certainly we can preserve the highest and best performing and the highest yielding farmland out there. But we've got to have that conversation, and we've got to put politics aside, because that's what's been driving this for as long as I've been on the board. So thank you both.
Commissioner Oliver King.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to share that being a part of the Preservation Agriculture Board has just been, I've gotten a wealth of information, and those members are passionate about us not eating concrete, but eating food. If you have not attended a meeting, I encourage you to attend. I have learned a lot from Commissioners Antor and Commissioner Sparks about their experience being a part of the board. This is a vital issue we need to be paying attention to. And I thank Matt for all of his work keeping us on target and putting all of this together. And thank you, Denny and Matt, for doing a great presentation today. Look forward to the next meeting.
Okay, thank you all, and thank you, Denny and Matt, for your presentation, for your work, your persistence, your patience, and your challenge. Thank you. All right, our next item on the agenda is our first opportunity for public comment. This is the opportunity for individuals to address the board on items that are on our agenda only. So if you wish to address us, please identify your name, address, and you have up to 3 minutes.
How you doing, everybody? My name is DeAndre Jones. I stay at 967 Tamarack Avenue, Grand Rapids, Michigan, 49504. I want to talk about the preservation because there's a lot of black farmers, and black farmers don't get a lot of funding. I didn't hear anybody talk about organic fruit, organic vegetables. It's a lot of GMOs and terrible things that the government just lets the FDA put in the foods that they put out into stores that people buy in underserved communities. Even white people buy these foods. It doesn't matter about ethnicity. People don't have true education about the food that is put out there. And so I would definitely like you guys to educate people on organic food, really getting resources out there to educate people so we are actually truly eating healthy and making sure that regardless of your ethnicity, that you get the proper resources and funding to grow food, to be able to contribute to our economy. I didn't know that Michigan is the second largest agricultural state. I just know it's a lot of farmland. And I definitely support all solar energy, any type of renewable energy, because it's needed. When we think about coal, there's a lot of people that work in coal plants. This is hundreds of thousands of people that die from coal mines and just coal. And so I know there's a need for coal, but we definitely need to reduce the coal, because I don't know how close the farmlands are to the cities, but I know that those coal plants, they emit toxins into the air, and that goes usually into underserved communities. And I know across the United States, probably if I was in Georgia and I was growing peaches or something like that, and I'm pretty sure it would be a neighborhood close where there is farmland in the city, and those toxins are going to those communities. So we need to think about those things. I support this. I love farmland. I love everything that they're doing. I'm not saying this in a bad way. I just want you guys to think about it, because there are people of color that don't get the proper resources to be able to grow food. And there are underserved communities that get food from food pantries that have GMOs and terrible things, and they give these to the communities for free, and it comes from big corporations, and people don't educate people on those things. So I really care about our community. I care about our farmlands. I care about our state. I just care about just everything. I'm a human being. I have feelings. People suffer. So please don't forget those things. It's a lot of people that eat this food that die from eating the food, probably some of the food that have GMOs and terrible toxins here in the state. So we need to make sure that we prioritize human life, quality of human beings, because I'm sure you guys wouldn't want anything in your body that's going to harm you, that's growing in our state, in our county, in our city, right? Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Anyone else? Agenda items only, please.
Commissioners, Daniel Scott, longtime resident of Kent County, west side of Grand Rapids. Again, my real identity is I'm a follower of the Lord Jesus Christ. A couple of agenda items, one about what we've just been talking about, connects to my warning recently about the murder pill, RU-486, being dispensed into our water system. Came across some new statistics. Emergency room visits associated with that chemical murder increased more than 500% from 2002 to 2015. Many of the so-called emergency room related visits were misrepresented as miscarriages. They're really results of the murder pill, which is in the news, of course. And so again, as this is dispensed into our water system, it continues to poison it. We've talked about energy. Please, I would hope that you would be alert to what other electrical companies are doing around the country, specifically in Baltimore and on the East Coast. They are taking these murdered children and the equipment used to murder them and burning it to heat homes. Electrical companies doing this on the East Coast. I would hope this would never happen here. Then the agenda item C about the, again, your budget, our budget. I appealed to you last time. Please take some of this money and give it to Leslie King, this brave woman who is rescuing women and children from sex slavery in our city. No one has done more to rescue these dear women and children from this terrible slavery. And of course, now that our borders are wide open, more and more of these women and children from other countries are being forced into this terrible lifestyle. And I know a great place to pour in some of this money to house these women, because many of these women are determining to have their baby murdered because they feel they can't support them. I would encourage you to take 320 East Fulton and turn that murder factory into a factory or a place where these women could live, pour in some of this money that we have here, and help them raise their babies. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, if not, we will move to the next item, which is our consent agenda, and I will call on Commissioner McLeod.
Thank you, Chair. I move for the adoption of the consent agenda of today's date.
Supported by Commissioner Ponstein. Let me make one note that with respect to the approval of the minutes of the meeting from March 23, 2023, this should also include the March 2023 CIP work session minutes as well. So, all right. Any questions, comments on the motion? If not, this is a roll call.
On the adoption of the consent agenda, Commissioners Wooden.
Yes.
Teal.
Yes.
Sparks.
Yes.
Ponstein. Yes. Pakla. Oliver King. Merchant. McLeod. LeGrand.
Yes.
Coleman.
Yes.
Hildebrand.
Yes.
Hennessy.
Yes.
Green.
Yes.
Diaz. DeBoer. Burl.
Yes.
Bujek.
Yes.
Prevey.
Yes.
Baker. Antor. And Chair Steck.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, you have 20 yeas, 0 nays. The consent agenda is adopted.
Thank you very much. We'll now move to item 8, the resolutions for today. And for our first, I will call on Commissioner LeGrand.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to move Resolution 35 of today's date, a request to adopt the Kent County social media policy, which comes to us from the Administrator's Office.
Is there support? Supported by Commissioner Ponstein. Questions or comments on this one? If not, this is a roll call.
On the approval of, on the motion to approve Resolution 35, Commissioners Wooden,
Yes.
Teal,
Yes.
Sparks.
Yes.
Ponstein. Pecla. Oliver King. Merchant. McLeod. LeGrand.
Yes.
Coleman.
Yes.
Hildebrand. Hennessy. Green.
Yes.
Diaz.
Yes.
DeBoer. Burl.
Yes.
Bujek.
Yes.
Breivy.
Yes.
Baker. Antor. Chair Steck.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, you have 20 yeas, 0 nays. The resolution is adopted.
Thank you. We'll now move to item 8B, and I will call on Commissioner Coleman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move Resolution 38, the adoption of the 2023 Equalization Report.
Is there support? Supported by Commissioner McLeod. Questions or comments? Yes, Commissioner McLeod.
So I just wanted to say that we had quite a bit of conversation about the equalization report in the Finance Committee, and I thought that it would be really good just for people to understand like how much this, or how large of an increase we had this past year in terms of property values increasing. It was very robust conversation, and I think that it speaks to where the county is in terms of a lot of factors from, our economic development, but then also just the desirability of, the area for those that are seeking to, transplant here. And so I think that it would be great if you could just speak to a little bit of the conversation we had in finance in terms of kind of the why and what has changed so significantly over this past, cycle of equalization.
Great. Matt Walford is here, and maybe you can respond to that, please.
Sure. Thank you. It's my privilege. So yes, on an annual basis, it's our job as the board's representatives and the Equalization Department to summarize the values. This past year, we saw a 12.53% increase in our state equalized value. That represents an increase of $4.6 billion. Comparatively speaking, that's larger than the size of many of our smaller to even medium-sized counties throughout the state. So it's just been an extraordinary period, market appreciation here. That's a 12.5% increase in SEV. On the taxable value side, we had an increase in 8.6%. Now, our inflation rate was at 7.9% this year, so we have a growth even beyond the inflation rate, but that's even more extraordinary because this is the first year that the lesser applied portion of the Proposal A formula kicked in, where assessments or prior year taxable values were actually capped at 5%, because Proposal A reads it's 5% or the CPI, whichever is less. So the fact that we're exceeding that on the taxable is also extraordinary. This is the largest single-year increase in my entire career. I've been here for 26 years, and it's just an extraordinary time. All of that is connected directly to, as you were alluding to, the supply and demand. West Michigan is a vibrant and growing region. As today's presentations prove, there's lots of attraction for a wide variety of agricultural-related businesses, but also the heart of our manufacturing sector and our growing populations. As long as we continue to be a center of attraction for the West Michigan economic region, more people want to come here than there's an available supply, and that's certainly contributing to the significant market increases that we've seen in this singular year. Did I answer most parts of your question? Okay, thank you.
All right. Anyone else? Commissioner Bujek.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Do we anticipate this to continue?
As long as the economic fundamentals of our region stay the way that they are and there's a constraint on supply, we will continue to see demand for not only Kent County, but really the surrounding metropolitan area as well. Will it be at this pace where it's sort of historically high? I would anticipate maybe it slowing down, but not really. The trend, the overall trend is heading in that direction.
That's not a comment on inflation rate, though, right?
No, that is not. It's just the market fundamentals.
Anyone else? Okay, this is a roll call, so Rod, would you take the roll call?
On the motion to approve Resolution 38, Commissioners Wooden,
Yes.
Teal, Sparks,
Yes.
Ponstein, Pecla, Oliver King, Merchant, McLeod, LeGrand,
Yes.
Coleman,
Yes.
Hildebrand, Hennessy, Green,
Yes.
Diaz, DeBoer, Burl,
Yes.
Bujek, Brevi,
Yes.
Baker, Antor, Chair Steck.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, you have 20 yeas, 0 nays. The motion is approved.
Thank you. We'll move to item 8C, and I will call on Commissioner Sparks.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to move Resolution 39 of today's date, 2023 Remonumentation Grant, Budget Amendment of the Bureau of Equalization.
Is there support for that motion? Supported by Commissioner Antor. Questions or comments? I see none. This also is a roll call.
On the motion to approve Resolution 39, Commissioner Wooden,
Yes.
Teal, Sparks,
Yes.
Ponstein, Pecla, Oliver King, Merchant, McLeod, LeGrand,
Yes.
Coleman,
Yes.
Hildebrand, Hennessy, Green, Diaz, DeBoer, Burl,
Yes.
Bujek, Brevi,
Yes.
Baker, Antor, Chair Steck.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, you have 20 yeas, 0 nays. The motion is approved.
Thank you. We'll move to item 8D, and I will call on Commissioner Oliver King.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to move for the adoption of Resolution 40. Hopefully I'm saying this correctly. Let's see, Coral Health for 2023 Health Fund budget. Accept the appropriation of $89,472. Coral Health agreement for 2023 and 24.
Is there support?
Support.
Supported by Commissioner Sparks. Questions or comments? Commissioner Bujek?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to thank the Health Department for putting together a new commissioners' training on the Health Department. For those commissioners who weren't able to attend, there are some folders in the back there with the Health Department presentation from Monday. And I just want to thank the Health Department for taking their time to come and, bring those who have questions up to date as to what's going on with the Health Department. And I will be supporting this.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, Commissioner DeBoer.
Thank you, Chair. I previously voted against the Strong Beginnings program, but I did meet with Joanne, and she corrected some of my wrong assumptions. And so I just wanted to say I do support this, and I'm thankful for the great work that Community Wellness and the Health Department is doing.
Thank you. Anyone else? If not, this is a roll call.
On the motion to approve Resolution 40, Commissioners Wooden,
Yes.
Teal,
Yes.
Sparks,
Yes.
Ponstein, Pecla, Oliver King, Merchant, McLeod, LeGrand,
Yes.
Coleman,
Yes.
Hildebrand, Hennessy, Green,
Yes.
Diaz, DeBoer, Burl,
Yes.
Bujek, Brevi,
Yes.
Baker, Antor, Chair Steck.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, you have 20 yeas, 0 nays. The motion is approved.
Thank you very much. We'll now move to item 8E, and I will call on Commissioner Antor.
Chair, I'd like to move Resolution 41 at today's date, transfer ownership of 347 Evergreen in Sparta to the Village of Sparta.
Is there support for that motion? Support. Supported by Commissioner Ponstein. Questions or comments? I see none. This also is a roll call vote.
On the motion to approve Resolution 41, Commissioners Wooden,
Yes.
Teal,
Yes.
Sparks,
Yes.
Ponstein, Pecla, Oliver King, Merchant, McLeod, LeGrand,
Yes.
Coleman,
Yes.
Hildebrand, Hennessy, Green, Diaz, DeBoer, Burl,
Yes.
Bujek. Brevy.
Yes.
Baker. Antor.
Yes.
Chair Steck.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, you have 20 yeas, 0 nays. The motion is approved.
Thank you. We'll now move to item 8F, and for that, I will call on Commissioner Oliver King.
Chair. I'd like to move the adoption of Amendment 42. Accept and appropriate $90,000 to the Marie B. Shepherd Trust project.
Thank you. Is there support for that?
Support.
Supported by Commissioner Burrow. Any questions or comments? I will say that I believe that Cheryl Skipper is here today. This is the niece and executor of this estate. So thank you for joining with us today. This kind of receipt does not happen every day, so it's nice to have this. Any questions or comments? All right. I suspect that everyone is pretty excited to approve this one and move on. This is a good thing. All right. No comments or questions. We'll, Commissioner Wooden, you're looking at me like
I'm ready to vote.
Oh, okay. It's a roll call vote.
On the motion to approve Resolution 42, Commissioners Wooden.
Yes.
Teal.
Yes.
Sparks.
Yes, and thank you.
Ponstein. Pakla. Oliver King. Merchant. McLeod. LeGrand.
Yes.
Coleman.
Yes.
Hildebrand. Hennessy.
Yes.
Green.
Yes.
Diaz. DeBoer. Burl.
Yes.
Bujek. Brevy.
Yes.
Baker.
Yes.
Antor. Chair Steck.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, you have 20 yeas, 0 nays. The motion is adopted.
Thank you very much. And again, our gratitude and thankfulness to the estate, of course, and to you for being here. All right. We'll move to item 8G, and I will call on Commissioner McLeod.
Thank you, Chair. I move Resolution 43 of today's date, KCCA 2022-23 Commodity Supplemental Food Program, brought to us by the Kent County Community Action.
Is there support for this motion?
Support.
Supported by Commissioner Sparks. Questions or comments? I see none. This is a roll call.
On the motion to approve Resolution 43, Commissioners Wooden.
Yes.
Teal.
Yes.
Sparks.
Yes.
Ponstein. Pakla. Oliver King.
Yes.
Merchant.
Yes.
McLeod.
Yes.
LeGrand.
Yes.
Coleman.
Yes.
Hildebrand. Hennessy. Green.
Yes.
Diaz. DeBoer. Burl.
Yes.
Bujek. Brevy.
Yes.
Baker.
Yes.
Antor. And Chair Steck.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, you have 20 yeas, 0 nays. The motion is approved.
Thank you. For item 8H, I will call on Commissioner Sparks.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to move Resolution 44 of today's date, update of the fiscal policy, centralized purchasing of the fiscal services.
Support.
Supported by Vice Chair Brevy. Questions or comments? Commissioner Coleman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I did vote against this one Tuesday, and so I think in order to vote for it, I'd like to move the amendment of the proposed language in 7.A.6 to add at the end, quote, "and concurrently publish the report to the Kent County website for public transparency."
Okay. Motion to amend, the motion has been made and supported. I think our rules require that to be in writing. It is in a written form, and I can distribute that.
One thing on the document that's being passed out, it has an amendment on both sides, so we're only dealing with the one side in this motion. And please note, Commissioner Coleman, if you'll confirm, this is what you sent earlier, but you have made a slight change to the language.
Yes, on your recommendation, the word information will be changed to report.
So the handout in written form on the motion to amend, at least the front dealing with Resolution 44 with today's date, should change information to report. All right, motions to amend has been made. That motion has been supported a discussion on that motion to amend only. Yes, Commissioner Wooden.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, just seeing this, we discussed the change in emergency and extraordinary circumstances pretty extensively in committee. I think this makes a great deal of sense, this amendment to the purchasing policy, so I'll be supporting it.
Any other comments or questions on the motion to amend only? Commissioner Hennessy.
Thank you. Does the legal counsel have any difficulty with this particular amendment?
No, ma'am.
Thank you.
Commissioner Bujek.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Having full confidence in our current administration, I think that the language having not been amended would potentially be problematic in the future, not knowing who those potential administrators might be and the long-term consequences of making a change that didn't include a amendment such as this for public transparency. So I'm supportive of this, and I'm glad Matt brought this to our attention. I mean, I really would like to trust the work that's done in our subcommittee level, but there will always be times when we, as a full commission, need to look a little bit more closely at some of these things that come before us, and on occasion, find the need to make an amendment, and I'm supportive of this amendment.
Any other comments or questions on the motion to amend only? Commissioner Coleman.
Thank you all for your consideration of this amendment. In the discussion on Tuesday, you can watch that in detail on YouTube if you want, but I think we ought to be vigilant with our policies, especially when it comes to like emergency-related procedures, that there are proper checks and balances. There are checks and balances in the original written language, and I think this additional note to ensure public transparency will enhance that those updates.
All right, any other comments or questions on the motion to amend? If not, it is not a roll call vote, it is a voice vote. So those that support the motion to amend say yes.
Yes.
Those that oppose say no. All right, the motion to amend is approved. We'll now move to the underlying motion to approve Resolution 44 as amended. Any other comments or questions from commissioners? I see none, so that motion is a roll call.
On the motion to approve Resolution 44, Commissioners Wooden.
Yes.
Teal.
Yes.
Sparks.
Yes.
Ponstein.
Yes.
Pakla. Oliver King. Merchant. McLeod. LeGrand. Coleman.
Yes.
Hildebrand. Hennessy. Green.
Yes.
Diaz. DeBoer. Burl.
Yes.
Bujek.
Yes.
Breavy.
Yes.
Baker.
Yes.
Antor.
Yes.
And Chair Steck.
Yes.
Chair Steck, you have 20 yeas, 0 nays. The motion is approved.
Thank you. We'll now move to item 8I, and I will call on Commissioner Wooden.
Thank you, Chair. It is my pleasure to move adoption of Resolution 45 of today's date, a resolution to establish the Kent County Insurance Authority. It comes to us from the Administrator's Office.
It's supported by Commissioner Coleman. Any comments or questions on this motion? Commissioner Coleman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to thank Administrator Vanderberg. I think some of the rules and regulations that allow the insurance authority are pretty arcane, and so appreciate the vigilance to understand and know these nitty-gritty details that really make a big difference in the long run for Kent County and the taxpayer fund. So I just want to express my appreciation.
Any other comments or questions? Commissioner LeGrand.
Thank you, Chair. I too just want to thank Administrator Vanderberg for bringing this to us, for educating us on it, and I think it's an exciting opportunity. Thank you.
Very good. Other comments or questions? If not, Mr. Clerk.
On the motion to approve Resolution 45, Commissioners Wooden.
Yes.
Teal.
Yes.
Sparks.
Yes.
Ponstein. Pakla. Oliver King. Merchant. LeGrand.
Yes.
I'm sorry, Skip McLeod. Coleman.
Yes.
Hildebrand. Hennessy. Green. Diaz. DeBoer. Spurl.
Yes.
Bujek. Reevy.
Yes.
Baker.
Yes.
Cantor. And Chair Steck.
Yes.
Chair Steck, you have 20 yeas, 0 nays. The motion is approved.
Thank you. We'll now move to item 8J, and I will call on TBD. All right. How about Vice Chair Breivy?
Thank you, Chair. I move Resolution 46 of today's date, the standing rules, and it's from the Board of Commissioners Administrator's Office.
Is there support? Supported by Commissioner Diaz. Comments or questions on this one? Commissioner Coleman.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to express my thanks to the subcommittee that dealt with this. A lot of work involved, a lot of details, and really good work. I do want to move to amend this motion in the following ways. First, to remove the addition of 1.3L sub-item 4, and second, remove the proposed additional language of 3.4B from the motion. Use both language dealing with adding personal attacks language, so it's the same issue in 2 spots.
All right, motion is to amend is made, and it is supported. This has also been submitted in a written format. It is, I think, the flip side of the page that we saw earlier, so it is in front of you. Any questions or comments on the motion to amend the underlying motion first? Yes, Commissioner DeBoer.
Thank you, Chair. I am supportive of this motion to amend. I think that when we use the language personal attacks, that can be very subjective, and I'd rather just leave that off. I mean, there's a varying degree of what people would associate as a personal attack, and so I think it's just best and prudent to leave it off. So I'm supportive of this motion to amend.
Any other comments? Or Commissioner Wooden?
Thank you, Chair. While I appreciate the sensitivity of determining what is a personal attack and what is not, and I also appreciate the sensitivity around First Amendment protections, I will be voting no on this amendment for the following reasons. First and foremost, I look to the section in Rule 1.3 that this is amending, and it is the powers given to the chair to establish rules of decorum and to preserve order. And that is because bodies like ours are limited public bodies and empower that public body to both limit the time and manner of which speech can be made. And that allows us to conduct our businesses in a civil and professional way. I think to Commissioner McLeod's invocation this morning that talked about the differences of our opinions, but the unity of our soul. And I think in order for us to have honest, deliberate discussions, we need to have an explicit protection against engaging in personal attacks. One would actually assume that without this amendment, that protection may very well be in place, but it is even more up to the discretion of the chair. By having this specifically called out, it empowers the chair and gives the chair the responsibility to ensure that we have healthy and productive debate on the merits of policy and not engaging in personal attacks on one another. And, while it certainly is the chair's interpretation of that rule, and that is the case with all of our standing rules, the chair is the arbiter of our standing rules. And that is why there's an appellate process in place as well, that if this body disagrees with the ruling of any chair, now and in the future, it may move to appeal that decision. And so in order to ensure we can maintain a proper and civil discourse to engage in our ideas, I will be voting no on this amendment and would encourage my colleagues to join me in voting against it. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Commissioner Baker.
Yeah, first the question is just the rationale of including this into the discussion. I imagine that you had discussion on why we needed to add this to the discussion.
If the question is, did the committee review it? The committee did review, the Standing Rules Committee did review this concept. The original discussion identified that members of the public certainly have full rights to address the board. in public comment. However, no member of the public has a right now, under the old rules or this potential new rules, to personally attack either individuals of this DS or to personally attack others. So it's not a right that they have. This does not take a right away from them. It does expressly articulate that that is a limitation, that they will not have the ability to engage in personal contact or attacks. Yes, it was discussed, and for purposes of adding clarity to that, not for purposes of limiting a legitimate right to public comment, it was deemed by the committee to add this language in.
I appreciate that explanation.
Any, yes, Commissioner Hattor.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to be supporting it in part. I know Commissioner Wooden said we need to have honest, deliberate discussions, and we can't really do that if we're neutered by something that's going to restrict. You know, I could say the sky is blue, and I guarantee you, in the United States in 2023, I'd be offending somebody, or somebody would take issue with that. It's gotten so crazy. I'm just afraid of being, like I said, neutered or forced to crawl into a fetal position and not be able to express my views. Dr. Ben Carson at the National Prayer Breakfast a few years ago said the most dangerous thing in America is not any foreign adversaries, not anything they could do to us. He said it's political correctness that's going to destroy this country because it neuters us. It doesn't allow us to express our true feelings. We shouldn't be personally attacking anyone. The question here is, what's considered a personal attack? And if that gets into, any discussions we have that really isn't relevant to personal attack, it's just my view on something. People can misconstrue it if they want, but we have to be honest about what we're really trying to do. And I fully support this amendment in the spirit in which he's bringing it forward. Thank you.
Commissioner Hildebrand.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I won't be supporting the amendment. I think we could argue back and forth about two words included in the rules and make arguments of why it's important or maybe why we should take it out. My issue is with the process. We had 5 members of the commission on this rules committee. We spent a lot of hours working through it. There's a lot of give and take. Some priorities of certain members were included, some were not. We adopted the proposal this morning before this board meeting, adopted the proposed rules. And so just by looking at a little micro piece of the rules without looking at it comprehensively, I don't think is kind of the right approach. I'll be voting no on the amendment.
Commissioner Diaz.
Thank you, Chair. I'm inclined to agree with some of my colleagues that it's important for us to define what a personal attack is. I think there have been examples throughout the country of this type of language being abused in other government entities, where criticism of a particular policy prescription or policy idea is defined or treated as a personal attack, and I think that does, in a word, neuter or limit the free speech of people. However, I do think, as was mentioned, that process is important. I was earlier this week inclined to vote against the overall rules that were proposed, just because of some of my concerns that I have expressed in the past. But after speaking with the minority vice chair and corporate counsel, I decided to vote in favor of the overall standing rules, seeing as we're still negotiating and in discussions, and we'll be coming forward in the before October, essentially, to further amend those. And so I would definitely agree that further discussion is necessary in regards to this particular type of amendment or any type of amendment around personal attacks. But in order for us to do so, I think we need to spend the necessary time to discuss those types of things, along with some of the other amendments that other commissioners or other changes that other commissioners have expressed. And so I will be voting against this amendment.
Anyone else? Commissioner Sparks.
Thank you, Chair. Excuse me. A personal attack is something different than criticism. And when we have people come before this board, they have 3 minutes. 3 minutes is not a lot of time, but it is enough time to articulate what your real concern is if you're here for the real deal, if you're here for the real concern. What happens is people get off on the bunny trail, and then we don't get things done. I'm going to be voting against this amendment because I do want to have that that precedence, set that precedence that says, if you're here to handle business, because that's what we're here for, then we're going to listen to you and your time is going to be valued. That way, when people know that they come before us, that their voice is heard, but also they come for business and not for the personal attacks. Criticism is something totally different than a personal attack.
Others? Commissioner Burrow.
Thank you, Chair. Does the chair has the sole right to, if, let's say, this amendment was approved, you still have the sole right as the chair to cut that conversation off?
Well, let me respond to that, because the question I think is put to me. It is my understanding that the language in the current rule with respect to that gives the chair the full discretion to determine what crosses the line of decorum, what would be acceptable. At what point does the chair have the right to say no? We cannot take that comment. That is currently my prerogative as the chair. So when we discuss this and when I review this proposed change, it does not restrict or limit the public any more than we currently have. It simply puts the public on notice that personal attacks, not commentary with respect to substantive issues, personal attacks are not tolerated and would be outside of the decorum that's acceptable in this body. So from my perspective, nothing substantively changes. It merely puts the public on notice that this is something that is not acceptable. So,
thank you.
Commissioner Wooden.
Chair Steck, just very briefly, I'm going to request a roll call vote for the amendment.
A request is granted, I think, as required under the existing rules. Commissioner LeGrand.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to say that I appreciate the point that Commissioner Hildebrand made about all the work that already went in, all the negotiating that went into these rules, and the appropriateness of approving them or not approving them as they stand. And I also thank Commissioner Wooden for pointing out the structure that we already have, the appellate process that we already have. I also want to express my appreciation for the chair's very fair handling of every meeting that we have had, and the fairness that he has shown all people who have come before this body to speak. So I will be voting no on the amendment and yes on the rules. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Coleman, you had your second.
This is actually my first, Mr. Chair.
Oh, is it?
And only.
So much for being fair, huh?
So thank you, Mr. Chairman. I again, appreciate the work of the Standing Rules Committee. I was able to attend a number of the meetings. I think in public comment at one of those meetings brought up my concern about this particular language that I'm looking to amend, and agree that all of the other changes in the standing rules are, from my perspective, good, well worked through, and enhancements to the standing rules. And should this amendment pass, I'd be happy to then support all of the other dozens of changes in the standing rules. I think my concern focuses on the substantive possibility of, without a definition of personal attack in the standing rules, it is subjective. Now, our current chairman certainly has a great deal of understanding of the constitutional issues that could possibly be there with the potential of restricting someone's speech based on an assessment of it being a personal attack. But in the future, may be judged by somebody with less legal expertise. And so I think there is a substantive concern without more clarity of what personal attack means, that judgment, which the chair pointed out is already the prerogative of the chair without this language, but it opens up the possibility of potential free speech conflicts. Now, in addition to that, hopefully remote possibility of a substantive First Amendment issue, I do think there is a likely perception issue by putting this specific language into our standing rules, that it is intended, while I do not think it is, but that the perception could be that it is intended to restrict opinions on this board, or worse, from members of the public. And I think that perception is not worth the specific clause being in there. I do know that there are numbers of legislative and parliamentary bodies, throughout our country and others that do have more specific rules around decorum and the ultimate goal of civil discourse, which I fully support. And I think if we could get to a more specific detail on those rules of decorum, that would avoid those perception issues. And ultimately, when it comes down to it, I think it's left to the judgment of us and members of the public to be civil in our engagement with discourse. If Commissioner Wooden wanted to say, I think Commissioner Coleman is an idiot on this topic, it should be his right to do so, in my opinion. That while certainly some may judge that as a personal attack, I think that restricting that speech would be a mistake. And ultimately, trying to restrict that speech makes it a more adversarial type of engagement than leaving the rules of civil discourse and decorum up to us, which I know, Commissioner Wooden, I don't think, would do that, because he would engage in the substantive issue, not in name calling. And I think that ultimately it really comes down to us, and trying to define it with less clarity doesn't help the situation. That's why I moved this amendment.
Let me clarify the rule that is at issue and being discussed, as I understand it, is the public comment rule and not the debate rules that would apply to individual commissioners as they address issues. And in that regard, just a reminder, all debate from commissioners is directed to the chair and not to other commissioners. And if one were to say to me, my colleague is an idiot, I would be declaring that to be violation of any decorum and inappropriate, and censor that, period. I don't think that's a First Amendment violation whatsoever to censor that. To the extent that this rule applies to the public comment, it puts them on notice of a fact they do not have a right to do that. They don't have a First Amendment right to make that contact here in this context. So if we don't have a specificity of any sort, and I appreciate the suggestion that the concept of what is a decorum that's acceptable could be debated for as many hours as we'll likely debate restructuring this board, and then end up with a set of stipulations that will themselves have a degree of ambiguity, ultimately defaulting back to me as the chair or my successor in making that judgment. To identify one of those that we find to be particularly offensive of the decorum required is the personal attack. So without it, I would apply the same rule. I would expect to be calling on the public not to make those comments. And if this motion to amend passes, I will still be making that decision and restricting those kinds of behaviors. I simply won't have the direct support of my board or my rules. I'll have to do it on my own. I get it. What this does, though, is give the board chair the protection and the assurance that this board as a whole acknowledges that that's inappropriate behavior. You may be as vociferous and as aggressive as you wish in addressing substantive issues, and you may say that my position on a particular issue is idiotic, but you may not call me an idiot. That's the distinction that I would call for in this rule. So it will not substantially change how I apply the rules, but it would provide myself and the successors that clarity that personal contact or personal attacks are not acceptable under our decorum rules. Well, what did I do now? Okay. Commissioner Antor.
Thank you, Chair. With all due respect, I just want to take issue with one thing. You were here, I was here, maybe half this board was here during the ICE discussions with the contract, and we saw the public coming. I called it a mob back then. I still refer to them as a mob. They came in, were shouting all kinds of things that were personal attacks, everything under the sun. It's all documented. We can watch it again. But I can guarantee you, if you'd have tried to shut them down because of some of the verbiage, you would have had a near riot. I talked to Larry Stelma back when he was the sheriff, and I said, can we make some arrests here? Because they were keeping us from doing our jobs. They were interfering with our meetings. And back then, we just got to let them go because we don't want to give them what they want is notoriety. So we opted to sit there, crawl back into our fetal position, and let them disrupt meeting after meeting after meeting. Would that be a case, I guess I'd be asking you, Mr. Chair, where you would try to stop that group because of the verbiage they were using? If you did, I'm going back to why we didn't do anything in the first place. We would have had a riot. And so it's a touchy issue. I'm going to support this because I think if we're going to allow them to do it back then, for whatever reasons we used to allow, I don't know, if we did it to stop a riot or whatever they're going to do, I think those rules still apply now.
Well, I don't know that the example that you draw up is directly applicable here, because I'm not sure that any rule of decorum would have had an impact on what developed there. And the process that may have been required to respond to that may be quite different than an individual comment that exceeds the appropriate decorum. I wasn't chair at that point either, I might point out.
No, kudos, but yeah, I appreciate your comments. That's a perspective thing.
Commissioner Boudjak. I'm sorry, did Commissioner LeGrand, did you have your hand up as well? I'm sorry, she was first, yeah.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to call the question.
Ooh. Support for calling the question? Okay.
No debate.
It's not debatable.
Two-thirds.
Two-thirds? Let's see if we have it. Calling the question without further debate would be a two-thirds. We're going to assume it's two-thirds. So I need a roll call. I will do a roll call on that. All right. I'm going to make a chair's ruling that it requires a two-thirds vote to call the question and end debate. Rod, we go ahead and take the roll call on that.
Point of order. Is that, this is a question whether to limit debate and call the question, correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
On the motion to limit debate and call the question, Commissioners Wooden,
Yes.
Teal,
Yes.
Sparks.
Yes.
Ponstein. Pekla. Oliver King. Merchant. McLeod. LeGrand.
Yes.
Paulman.
No.
Hildebrand. Hennessy.
No.
Green.
No.
Diaz. DeBoer. Burl.
Yes.
Boujak. Breivy.
Yes.
Baker. Antor.
Speaking of free speech, no.
Chair Steck.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, you have 13 yeas, 7 nays. The motion is approved.
It is not approved.
Oh, I'm sorry, not approved.
The two-thirds,
Two-thirds.
right? It's two-thirds. It's not. Commissioner Boudjak, you are up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think it's sad that we've come to a point in place in politics where we need, or we feel the need, to add such language to our standing rules whereby the county has survived to this point without such rules. And it's just a sad place that we are in, where we have to quantify these words and put them in place. And I really, really don't think that it's going to stop anyone out there in public comment from saying whatever they're going to say, regardless of the rule. So if you have a rule breaker, having a rule isn't going to stop them because their intent is malfeasance and rule breaking, and they're going to do it anyways. You're going to have a sheriff in here, to drag them out. But my point is that I think it's sad that we've gotten to the point where we have to go and wordsmith like this and find, a way to try to be more controlling. And I don't know, I'm not going to support this. I will be supporting the amendment. Thank you.
Commissioner McLeod, I think you have not addressed the issue yet.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to say that as a part of the Standing Rules Committee, that we did have a lot of discussion about this. It did not come about as just something on the fly. We were thinking about, First Amendment rights and all of those things, but also decorum and how we need to be able to address the business that is put before us in a way that allows us to be able to move forward. And so I just want to say that I will not be supporting this amendment, again, because we've had these conversations, we've talked this through, we understand that there is a difference between, someone having something, some statement about our character versus an attack. And so it is subject to the discretion of the chair to make those determinations, but without it being in the standing rules, there is no way to really hold someone accountable. And so I just want to say that, again, we've had these conversations as a committee of 5 representing the overall board in terms of making these changes to the standing rules. And we did consider, not infringing upon people's rights, but it is not someone's right to personally attack us as board members. It's not. They can say what they need to say to get their point across about the business that they're in front of us for, but they do not have the right to attack us in ways that, that makes it so that we can't address the business that we're here to do. And so I won't be supporting the amendment because, again, we've had these extensive conversations in the subcommittee. We agreed that, there was some give and take on a lot of different things, and this was one of the things that it's like we need to be able to do the business of the county without having to also deal with feeling like we're attacked and can't move forward. And so I will not be supporting the amendment.
Oh, all right, so you're going to have to hold just a second if you would. So Vice Chair Breedy.
Thank you, Chair Steck. As a member who has served for a number of times on the Standing Rules Committee, I appreciate all the work that goes into working on the standing rules and understanding the process. It's not an easy task. And so I fully support the work that the committee has done. And I do think we need to call upon each other as board members and also the public to act in a civil manner. And I think that's okay in our standing rules to provide that information and that understanding. So I will be supporting the standing rules as they are.
All right. Anyone else for a first? If not, Commissioner DeBoer, your second.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to share a little bit of thought in this discussion of, it would be nice if we were all capable to have our business life and our professional life and our personal life be mutually exclusive. But they absolutely overlap, and there are absolutely things that maybe we need to know about an individual's character to be assured that they can conduct themselves professionally in a professional life. So, I just very much would rather lean on the side of giving First Amendment right and liberty and, the ability for the public to say what they want rather than protecting maybe a personal issue that I have or may not have.
All right, anyone else? Yes, Commissioner Baker. I think that's your second one as well?
Yes, my second, yes. Just a quick thing. I think that public comment provides a forum. I think it's appropriate for people to ask for inquiries into the behavior of people. However, the nature of public comment is to get us to do our work. And there is no, speaking of free speech, there's no time given for those accused or called names to respond to that. And we don't want a situation where a staff member, a commissioner, or someone else in the county does not have, can allow, that we can have people standing in line to call names or make allegations without also providing an opportunity for those people to respond. And if that then that response would lead to us not getting our work done. So I think that it's one thing to, so I will be voting no on the amendment. I think it's an appropriate and necessary thing. That way we can do our work without being defensive about, what people might call us.
Okay, with that, I think that we are ready to vote on the motion to amend the proposed standing rules as indicated in the written submission from Commissioner Coleman. So, and a request has been made that this be by roll call. So will you take the roll call on the motion to amend?
On the motion to amend, Commissioners Wooden,
No.
Keel,
Yes.
Sparks,
No.
Ponstein, Pekla, Oliver King, Merchant, McLeod, LeGrand,
No.
Paulman,
Yes.
Hildebrand, Hennessy, Green,
Yes.
Diaz, DeBoer, Burl,
Yes.
Bujek, Brevi,
No.
Baker, Antor, Chair Steck.
No.
Mr. Chairman, you have 8 yeas, 11 nays. The motion fails.
All right, let's move to the underlying motion to approve the standing rules as submitted. Any other comments or questions? Yes, Commissioner Wooden.
Thank you, Chair. Just very briefly, I wanted to express my gratitude to my fellow committee members, you, Chair Steck, Commissioners McLeod, Green, and Hildenbrand. It's every 2 years we have this, and it's usually a very intensive 2 months of discussion that produces an update. And we had so much fun, we decided we're going to do this a second time come October. But I really appreciated our discussion, both involving the draft that has been presented to you and also the larger discussion about committee restructuring and how we can empower commissioners to make a more substantive impact on our deliberations and our policymaking. And for that, I'll be supporting our standing rules update as of right now and look forward to our update in October that can ensure our committee structure empowers commissioners and is representative of our entire board. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Commissioner Antor.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not going to be supporting this, but I didn't want that to take away from the work. I sat in on a few of those rules meetings. I knew there's a lot of due diligence, hard work, consideration that went into it. I just got hung up on this one point, so thank you.
Other questions or comments? Yes, Commissioner Diaz.
Thank you, Chair. As I indicated earlier, I was previously inclined to vote against the standing rules just because of the concerns that myself and I know some others have expressed around board restructuring and voice so that all commissioners can have a voice, the county budget and finance, and also on the structure of our executive committee. But given that we will be coming back around and having further discussions and debates around our standing rules by the end of the year, and hopefully even sooner, I will be voting yes on these standing rules with the condition that we will, of course, be having further discussions. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? All right, if not, this is a roll call. Rod, would you take the roll?
On the motion to approve Resolution 46, Commissioners Wooden,
Yes.
Keel,
Yes.
Sparks,
Yes.
Ponstein, Pekla, Oliver King, Merchant, McLeod. Yes. LeGrand.
Yes.
Coleman. No. Hildebrand. Hennessy. Green.
Yes.
Diaz. DeBoer. Burl.
Yes.
Bujek. Brevy.
Yes.
Baker.
Yes.
Cantor. Chair Steck.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, you have 17 yeas, 2 nays. The rules are adopted. Motion approved.
All right, thank you. That brings us to the end of our resolutions for today's date, which ironically brings us back to public comment again. So with our new rules now in effect, those that wish to address us, watch that personal attack. If you wish to address us on matters that are within our jurisdiction as general, you may do so now. You have up to 3 minutes. Please identify yourself by your name and your address.
Once again, Daniel Scott, follower of the Lord Jesus Christ. Holy Scripture says, "This act does the Lord hate. Yes, this act is abomination unto him. Hands that shed innocent blood." For some good news, I've been sharing perhaps what some would say is negative news. One of the men that almost daily is out in front of 320 East Fulton reports this good news. Since January 1st, 29 babies have been saved through their intervention. I have the picture of one of them. It's baby Haneen. Beautiful baby, saved in February, actually. That's the gentleman holding her that is out there actively. Perhaps she'll grow up to be a Kent County Commissioner. This is what happens at 320 East Fulton. We want the whole leg intact, include the entire hip joint, 20 to 24 weeks, sterile. Age of fetus must be determined and noted. Indicate foot pad measurement, 4 to 6 specimens per shipment. Dissect by cutting through the symphysis pubis and include the whole hip, bone, and pelvis. To be removed from the fetal cadaver within 10 minutes. Cover with media, ship on wet ice. Fetal brains. Hold both cortical hemispheres intact if possible, 16 to 22 weeks. Fresh shipped on wet ice. This is what they get when they sell these. Fetal brains, $3,000 to $4,000. Human fetal tissue, 10 at $5.95 each. Upper and lower limbs with hands and feet, almost $1,000. Baby skull matched to the upper and lower limbs, $600. Now with our governor signing and the Baal Moloch party okaying murder up until birth, what really is going to happen is murder after birth. It's already happening in our state and around the country. Through amniotic. I'll have to share that later.
Thank you. Anyone else?
How you doing, everybody? Jones. I ain't gonna say my address. I think I said it already. But I'm very excited for my esports competition at the 4-Star Theater. I gotta tell you guys, if you guys never believed in my vision, if you didn't think my project was feasible, I got some crazy stuff to tell you. And I just love proving people wrong. I know how politics works. Some politicians smile in your face and talk stuff behind your back. But I'm the type of person, I will say everything I have to say, bad or good, in front of your face. I think every political
Except for
leader,
personal comments.
even personal comments, I will tell you directly to your face. I just probably won't say it publicly just to save the scrutiny of you having to deal with the backlash of things I'll say. I'm that type of person. But I am excited for this esports competition because I got Steelcase bringing gaming chairs. McDonald's actually reached out to me because they actually seen my TV interview on Wood TVA, and I had one on ABC 13 for esports and gaming. I got a sponsorship from Red Bull, who has one of the universally largest gaming platforms in the country. I have a bank educating the community on financial and fiscal responsibility. I have United Healthcare coming to educate the community on healthcare and helping them get healthcare plans because our underserved community don't know how to get healthcare plans. I have a partnership with the American Cancer Society. We're going to fundraise and game for cancer and raise money to actually educate people on cancer and find cancer research and possibly find a cure to cancer, at least get some funds that can go towards it. It's a lot of cool things that I'm doing for the community, and I got some of the billion-dollar corporations that connected with me, and I'm going to go eat lunch with Amway after I leave here, so I'll be in their face talking stuff to them. You guys know what I'm already on. I'm really excited for this. I got some cool articles. I mean, before when I was here, a guy just called me, and they have a high school esports league from Southwest High School, and they actually have 20 high schools that participated, competed in that. I have 38 people that signed up to compete in my competition. That's not even including the kids that will be there that's just going to be there. It's a lot of people, and I'm a very popular person. I'm popular in the hood. I'm popular everywhere. So if you guys didn't believe in my vision, I'm trying to tell you now, I'm going to change the community. I'm going to be a global business leader. I've already have global resources. I'm getting the biggest corporations, and I have GRTV that actually going to be putting together a whole TV broadcast that's going to play 20 times on the TV. So I'll get the eyes, the people who know about Jump Ahead L3C. And I want you guys to consider giving funding to the Forest Star Theater to revitalize that property so we can bring life to our community, because I care about economic development, I care about our local businesses, and I just care about our community. I'm going to do some powerful stuff. I already know I am a powerful human being, and I'm a Ford Fellow, if you guys didn't know that. I'm a Gerald R. Ford Presidential Fellow. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, anyone else? Okay, I don't see any other public comments, so we will move to item 10, which is the administrator's report.
I just have a couple brief items. Whoops. Thank you. Couple brief items for you today. We have 7 signed ARPA contracts so far. We have 6 returned, so those should be signed and put out this week. And then also, next week, we do have the groundbreaking for the Boston Square Community Hub, and that's something the Board of Commissioners invested $4 million in ARPA money in, and so it might be a great event to attend. And obviously, we're still hard at work on the operating budget, getting that recommendation ready, and I'd also like to echo some previous sentiments and thank Dr. Adam London, who's here, for just the presentation his team did. It's great to see the scope of the health department, and that we do have a lot of top professional folks that head up all the different divisions. So thank you for that. And that's all for today.
All right, we'll move to the next item, which would be reports. Any reports from commissioners? Commissioner Wooden.
Thank you, Chair. Just to report that the advisory committee for the New Kent County Homes Fund met for the first time recently. This committee comprises of myself, Commissioner Breevy, and Commissioner Burrell, as well as other stakeholders, both from the housing and finance sector. The first meeting largely went over our mission and goals, and our target to bring a grant agreement with parameters for how the loan fund would be structured by June. Still a tall order. Hopefully we can make it, but we'll be working at a deliberate pace to return that to this board. Thank you.
Good, thank you. Thank you for your work on that. Anyone else? Report? No reports. Okay, we'll move on to miscellaneous as the next item. That got him going. All right, so let's see. Commissioner Antor, you were first.
Thank you, Chair. Just wanted an update. A good friend of mine and a good friend of Kent County's, Joel Langlois, was involved in a really bad accident last weekend. And Joel has graciously donated the use of his building for different issues, especially during COVID and other things, back when he owned the Deltaplex. And he's always donated resources to us. He was involved in a really bad accident, but he's recovering. He had 6 broken ribs, I think a punctured lung, 2 cracked vertebrae, a broken cheekbone, and a huge gash on his head. And that man is tough. It's just amazing. I went to visit him. First thing he says, you want to buy a used ATV? Because that's what he was on when he had his accident.
Slightly damaged?
Yeah, I told him no because they're way too dangerous, but he's recovering, and I know I had some people ask me how he's doing, and it's going to be a long recovery, but he'll be back, so thank you.
Good. Wish him our best. All right, Commissioner Coleman?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to say thanks to my colleagues for consideration of my 2 amendments today. You win some, you lose some. But I appreciate the consideration, and I think with our new standing rules and the particular clause I was concerned about, we now have a very robust discussion that I can point constituents to of what we mean, and so I appreciate that thorough discussion.
Thank you. Commissioner Bujek?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm not a supporter of restricting First Amendment rights. I had an opportunity to share my comments during the amendment discussion. I did, however, support the standing rule because I don't believe that voting no for the entire standing rule, which is, completely acceptable to me, was such that those things that I oppose would keep me from supporting the entire standing rule. It is my hope that you will never have to use those rules. However, at your discretion, you now have those tools. And I have seen Grand Rapids City Commission meetings that would be probably in need of having such rules. And again, I hope that you'll never have to use those rules. And then secondly, I also want to comment about renewable energy. I made some comments about solar farms. I am not opposed to solar farms. I am opposed to putting solar farms on agricultural land that is of a higher value of use than using that land for solar energy. I think there are, as part of the Michigan Association of Counties, I've been involved in meetings with discussions regarding solar panels, and it is coming. Within the next 5 years, we will have these discussions. There are places where solar farms will work. Brownfield land or areas where the land has been determined to be polluted and not usable. These are perfect places for solar farms. Or right here in the city, on top of all these buildings. So solar farms, in the right place at the right time, are something that we should consider. That's end of my comments.
Thank you. Commissioner LeGrand?
Thank you, Chair. I don't know if it was happenstance or planning that we had our reports from Conservation District and Agricultural Preservation a couple days before Earth Day, but I did want to point out that the Conservation District is holding their native plant, shrub, tree sale on Saturday. It's going to be out at Eagle Crest. 3200 Eagle Park Drive is where they're going to be. I urge you to, I've been sharing it on my social media. I urge all of you to do the same. It's a great way to support the Conservation District and also to get more of our native pollinators out there for the wildlife that depends on them. So hopefully they'll sell out. Thank you.
All right, Commissioner Hennessy.
Last night I had the pleasure of attending the Hauenstein Center for Presidential Studies program on Progressive Conservative Summit. And I will note that our own Adam London, the director of the Health Department, was one of the presenters, one of the main 2 speakers at the evening program. And it was a very good perspective on government, preventing violence within government, but just generally he had a very positive view as we talk about personal attacks, he just really had a very positive view on, you know, what it constitutes to be a public figure and to be the recipient of criticism. And it was a very good program. The other thing is very lighthearted. The zoo has started its a summer event of having Chinese lanterns. And it's, I had the occasion to go through there as well, and it's really cool. The darker it gets in the evening, the more light and more action you'll see from all these Chinese lanterns. And they're also educational, because you'll see the tiger, you know, the tiger lantern near the tiger exhibit. It'll have information suitable for all the ages. It's really fun. So this is going to be here for a very long time. I hope everybody can make it to see it.
Right, anyone else? Okay, if not, I just have a couple of things. One, I underscore I think it's called the Celebration of Lanterns or something like that at the zoo. So if you need to keep a 10-year-old boy attentive for 2 hours, that is the event you need to go to. It is.
Can I add one thing?
Sure.
I forgot to mention the Pygmy Hippo exhibit is going to be showing to the public very, very, very soon.
Not open yet, but it's getting there, yeah.
Very soon.
Anyway, 2 hours, 10-year-old, probably go up to even a 12-year-old would work. So I certainly recommend that activity. Second, just acknowledge all of you for this work on the Insurance Authority. I know it's not all that sexy, but look at good government, hard work and doing good government produces this kind of change. So acknowledge you for that. It will make a difference for this county economically and otherwise. So good work. And then last, I guess, appreciate the conversation on the rules discussion. First, thanks to the committee for their hard work in continuing to review what is sometimes mundane and pedantic kind of work, but you did it, you got through it, and appreciate all of that effort. We'll continue with that committee as we take on the question of the restructuring over the course of the next few months, and it won't wait till October. It'll have to be done by October, so it'll be over the summer, I'm sorry. With respect to the public comment rule, again, Commissioner Coleman, thank you for raising that. I want to assure everyone there was never an intent at that committee or from me that we would be restricting the opportunity of the public to address this board fully and fairly, and that I have no intention of applying the rule as is in order to unduly and unfairly restrict public comment. I think that it has always been my expectation of the public when they address us that they would not do so in a manner that involves personal attacks on individuals, but stays focused as aggressively as possible and as they feel on the substantive issues that they wish to address. So I don't see this as being a practical change in how we will function. And other than making sure that the public is aware of the fact there are limits, it is not a free-for-all, there are limits. I intend to apply that rule as fairly as I can, and finally point out if you think I crossed the line in restricting someone, the rules will let you overrule me. So with that, I will call on Commissioner McLeod for one last motion.
Thank you, Chair. I move to adjourn subject to the call of the chair to Thursday, May 11, 2023 at 8:30 a.m. for an official meeting.
Support, all in favor, say yes. Yes. Thank you. We are adjourned.